Hi, my name is Dr. Keke Thomas, and I'm president of Friends of African American Art and Culture, an affinity group here at the museum. I'm a mom of a teenager. I love being a mom, and that is kind of connected to being with the museum is because of her and getting her involved in the museum at a young age, attending art camps from the minute that she could when she was like 4 or 5 years old. That began, my connection with the museum. I really don't know all the intricate details about art. We have members of our board of directors, and they can see the color and the light and things like that. I just enjoy looking at it. When I look at art, especially African American art that comes from my culture, from my people, I'm amazed at the talent level. And so when I see these artists and the things that they're able to do that represent my people, you want to get that out there. I think it's valuable to have Sergio Hudson's collection here because it shows a different way of looking at art. One of the things that Sergio shared at his opening kind of goes to the title of his show, Focus on the Fit. And he talked about lines and shapes and who he modeled, his fashion, and that's art. Fashion is art, the colors, looking at his sketches, and then to see the designs itself, like living right there. There's the dress, there's the belt. Yeah. And we're now in an age of we want to give people their flowers while they're still here. You have to root for someone like that, right? That he always believed in himself and he knew what his talent was and he felt it could take him far. Then he had a supportive community. He had family and friends that he could perhaps lean on during the time. And you always want those cheerleaders along the way. And that goes back to FAAC and the people who are in Colombia. There's so many stories of the things that he did, the designs. I think one of his early kind of showings of his fashion, FAAC helped support with some other notable people in the Columbia area. And so to come back here, it's almost like a full circle moment. And then he didn't forget his roots. He shared the reason why the Target collaboration was so key, because it was an affordable place that in a way probably represented like who he was, where he came from. So that way his pieces were not out of reach. So to be an artist on his level, to have designs that can reach Michelle Obama, but then also the person who walks in a Target and gets the purple dress and they can feel like a Michelle Obama. That's a talent right there.
Welcome to Binder. I'm Jackie Adams. All right. Well, I want to welcome everyone today to today's Binder podcast. We have an exciting episode today for our listeners. I want to welcome a very, very special guest that I've had the utmost pleasure of getting to work with on a very exciting exhibition that's coming up at the Columbia Museum of Art. It's called Sergio Hudson, Focused on the Fit. And today I have invited our special guest, Megan Pinckney Rutherford, for her and I to have some conversation to learn a little bit more about Sergio, the show, building an exhibition in a museum. So I thought what we could do is, Megan, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audiences. Tell us who you are.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. Like you said, my name is Megan Pinckney Rutherford. I am a lifestyle blogger on shadesofpink.com, a brand that turns a decade this coming January. I can't believe it. But I'm also a digital content producer. So I work with local and national brands to create images for them to utilize in digital marketing. I am based here in Columbia, South Carolina, by way of Charleston. I had big dreams of leaving South Carolina and going to New York City. From the age of like 6th grade, I decided that I wanted to be an editor at Vogue. And I had blinders on. That was all I wanted. That was all I saw. And that was really like my only goal in life. And everything that I did was to lead up to that accomplishment. And I started at USC in print journalism, which is hilarious now to say because it's not even an option at that school, which just tells you how much life has changed in a really short amount of time. But due to extracurricular activities and just, honestly finding myself as a freshman, I flunked out of the journalism school. And I was really upset about it because, like I said, I had one goal and I knew exactly how I was going to get there. And when that didn't work, I figured out a way to pivot. And that's how I ended up in fashion merchandising and got a really deep understanding of the industry as a business. And with that, gained a great deal of respect for an industry that I think gets belittled and positioned as superficial. And from there, ended up not making it to New York, not ending up in Vogue, but becoming a local digital content creator. And in a weird, odd, could have never guessed it way, am doing a lot of what I wanted to do as an editor for Vogue, just in a hyper-focused, more specific, ultra-regionalized way.
I love this. I love this because this gives me a couple of different segues into our conversation today. And one of them is, I just thought about this, like you and I have this common connection through fashion because when I was a teenager, I wanted to be a fashion designer. So I did not get into fashion school. So I pivoted into the art world. And I think that when you talk about that full circle moment that you just pointed out, how you started one way, but you kind of went through different pathways. But here you are, you're circling back around to those beginnings. I have an example of a very similar trajectory. And that brings us to where our paths cross again. And that's because right now we currently have an exhibition on featuring the global designer Lee Alexander McQueen. And it was an exciting opportunity to look at fashion on the global scale, but also to think about fashion a little bit closer to home. And this is where we introduce Sergio Hudson. So can you talk a little bit about your role as a community curator for this exhibition and how that sort of got started?
Absolutely. So firstly, having the opportunity to work on this exhibit in this capacity is a dream come true. And oddly enough, a dream that I didn't know how badly I dreamt for because I was never formally educated in the art world. So the idea of helping an established museum create an exhibit around a fashion icon was never in my trajectory. So having the opportunity to do it is honestly mind-blowing. But it all came when I got wind through a good friend of mine and a former employee here at the museum that Alexander McQueen was coming. And that's a big deal here in Columbia, South Carolina, because we are not considered a city of fashion by any means of the definition. And because of that, I think that we aren't necessarily taken seriously in that industry. So when I learned that an exhibit honoring a true icon of the industry, someone whose role changed the trajectory of style and fashion as a business, was coming here, Alexander McQueen, it was really exciting. But I thought it was also a really good opportunity to connect that to a more local story. Because as you mentioned, this exhibit is around Sergio Hudson, a native of the Midlands and a dear friend of mine, who is truly on a trajectory that comes once or twice a generation. And the fact that his beginnings started right here around the corner, I think is not only unbelievable because it shouldn't happen, it doesn't happen, but it did. And that deserves to be not only honored, but told. And told in a way that projects what he has accomplished as art, not just through retail, which is very important and also very impressive if you know his brand. But it's art. And I think that that's the fun part to me about fashion, is that it intersects this platform of artistic beauty and functional, wearable, livable things for life.
Yeah. I read an article recently making the case for why putting fashion in art museums. And it was that connection between life and art. So I think you said that so well. That makes total sense. And that leads me into another question about working in museums. You and I have both gotten a lot of questions about, how did you get this exhibition? How did this even come to be? because now Sergio is on the national level doing very amazing things. So I thought maybe you could tell the listeners to take a little peek behind the curtain and tell us a little bit about your connection to Sergio, how maybe there's some of those personal connections, because he is so close to home, have helped bring this opportunity to us.
Absolutely. Sergio and I have known each other for quite some time now. In fact, our paths crossed in 2010. At the time, I was Miss South Carolina Teen USA, prepping to compete at Miss Teen USA. And he was a budding fashion designer living right here in Columbia, South Carolina. And at the time, I would be booked on appearances and was booked for an appearance at a re-grand opening for a really big hair salon here. And they were doing a fashion show. And Sergio was one of the designers. I'd never heard of him before that moment, but even watching his pieces walk down the runway in comparison to, at the time, his peers, he stood out. He was different. And I was honestly just blown away, breathless, because, again, at the time, studying fashion and really getting a different understanding of the technique, of the type of brain that it takes to create something like that. So, immediately I introduced myself and we stayed in touch. A few years later, he was still, I think at that time, he was in between Columbia and LA. His career had already started to take it off, but he would design a piece for me for an annual holiday party that my husband hosts. So I remember being at his mom's church while he was sketching, and then seeing this piece that was, on a 2D piece of paper a few weeks later come to life and me wear it and it be a memory that I hold with me. And not just the design process, but the evening that I wore that dress, will always be a memory. And when the time came for me and my husband to get married, I wanted a friend, and life was very different at the time. It was in 2020. There weren't very many opportunities to walk into a bridal store and try on dozens of gowns, even though that might have been a dream, that we'd had. So I reached out to him with a true favor, hey, I've been stalking your website for the past 10 years. And I see this beautiful bodysuit that you created in collection 5. Do you think you could make that for me for my wedding? And he was like, oh, I don't like doing wedding dresses anymore. I was like, well, this one's not a wedding dress. It's a wedding set. And he was like, okay, well, I'll do it for you. And that was how I got this incredible piece that I will forever cherish from such a special moment in my life.
And that piece was featured in Vogue Weddings?
It was. I mean, as if I needed more reason to love that dress. Talk about a full circle moment. Yeah. It is what got me in Vogue. It is what got my name under that iconic logo. And I think back to, that 6th grader who wanted it so badly and definitely did not end up on the path in which I saw it happening, but still, oddly enough, got there.
Yeah.
Is incredible. And I think that that's why his story means so much to me, because in a way, I gave up on that dream. And something that I'm very happy with. I am so incredibly proud of what I've been able to build, but I did give up on that dream, and he didn't. And because he didn't, he is exactly where he knew he should be. And I just think it's a story that needs to be told in our community, because I think so often we are conditioned to believe you have to have a certain type of education or you have to have certain connections. And all of those things are very important and are very helpful. But every now and then, if you are great enough, it'll still happen.
Mm-hmm.
And he is the perfect example of that.
I love the ideas that you're putting together here, because it goes back to the title of the show, Sergio Hudson,
yes.
Focused on the Fit.
Yes.
And early in the stages when we were thinking about a title for the show, I was struggling because I was just like, I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on how to title this. But this is where community collaboration can come in so beautifully, because folks like yourself, we have also had Jada Samuel as part of the process. She has brought some of her thinking and ideas to the table. And collectively, this title came to fruition in a really beautiful way. But going back to that idea of community curating, so within the museum, one of my roles is to do curation of exhibitions, as is a formally trained curator. But you're coming into the museum world and really playing curator. So tell us about the role. Like, what is it sort of meant to you?
Well, firstly, being able to do it under you has been incredibly eye-opening because you truly have it down to a science. So I greatly appreciate your guidance this entire time. But truly, like you said, I came into this really with just an idea. And the idea was simply, we should honor the work of our hometown hero. That was my idea. That was it. I expected to give it to you guys and see where it developed. And you all saw my passion for it and believed in my eye. And because of that, I've really been opened to a completely different world that I didn't even know existed. And the amount of steps that it takes to open an exhibit, I had no idea. And the reason why a light bulb is tilted at the degree in which it is matters. And for great reason, because sometimes someone's only going to walk into that room one time. And we want whoever is visiting to feel exactly what we want them to feel from these pieces, his experience. And as curators, our goal is to create that atmosphere so that their mind and their body does the rest of the work, but to lead them on a very direct journey into that. And those steps have been incredible. And like I said, I'm so thankful for you. But I mean, it's ranged from being able to put my print journalism hat back on and interview Sergio and his team, having been a friend of his for quite some time, having to see from the front row how his business has developed. I thought I knew a lot about his company. But after I went to LA and sat down with them for hours and had one-on-one talks with them about those early days, about those late nights, about those conversations with the fashion insiders on who's wearing what and when and why and how. And I got an even deeper understanding of the brand. And once I was able to completely dive in on a level in which I didn't even know possible, they then opened their showroom and their archives for me to dig around in.
Yeah.
And I felt like a kid in a candy store. Being able to see a coat from this runway show or a dress that I remember seeing on, this red carpet, or even sketches from pieces that I remember seeing when we were in Colombia and photography from models who are local here. It was really exciting to see all of those things together in one space, to see the remnants of his careers past, whether it was from last year or 10 years ago, kind of circling in one space. And then, hearing them answer phone calls about what's next so casually, like in the middle of interviews. It's really cool because this fall, he was on the cover of Essence magazine with his muse, the beautiful, talented Keke Palmer. And it's hilarious because he did that interview the day that I interviewed him. So being able to hear the conversations that he was having and then seeing that in black and white and really being able to feel a part of it, even if it's just for a moment, to feel the energy that's within that brand right now. And they're still such a small brand in a great way. Like he gets his hands are on everything. And there are 3 people a part of that brand, all of which I know that you will get to speak with and see throughout this podcast, this exhibit, and you'll understand their stories and the role that they play in that brand. But they all have their hands right on it, and they're still so deeply connected. So even as big as it gets culturally, in terms of a business, it's still a small business. So being in the midst of that, like I said, even just for a short time, and to feel that energy, and like I said, while also standing around the past, was really incredible.
I want to go kind of circle back around to this idea of Black entrepreneurship. because this is something that is so strong and so interwoven both in the work that you do personally and professionally, and also the work that the Sergio Hudson brand is doing as well. Can you speak a little bit about the importance of Black entrepreneurship and what you are doing in your own work and what Sergio is doing and what that means in a bigger, larger way?
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, it's allowing people to have opportunities to grow. And in order to do that, people need to be set up for success, whether that's through education on how to run a business, expertise on who to know to source so that for things that you may not quite be able to fulfill for your business, being able to find people that do. And I know one of the things that makes me really passionate about me as a digital creator and really why I even began doing what I did is because growing up when I would flip through these fashion magazines and see images that truly spoke to me, truly motivated me, and, created a passion inside of me, very rarely did I see people who looked like me. And I think it was because there was always a box painted on what an African American and an African American woman, a person of color, a Black person, in whatever way, and however you want to dissect those nouns, what that person could be. And I just don't feel like I always fit into the box that was expected of me. And I knew I wasn't alone. I knew I couldn't have been the only person that felt that way. I just didn't see it. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about social media is because it has opened up the world. It has shown me that I'm not. So being able to create a community of women who connect deeply to that not only makes me feel less alone, I hope also makes them feel the same way. And I think back to Sergio as a Black designer and conversations that he and I would have, when I would travel to LA early on in his career, and he would talk about, it was hard for him to get the push or the funding or whatever he needed for the next step. And so many times people came to him and was like, just create streetwear, create more urban wear. That's what people want. People want that. And he was like, and they do, and that's fine, and they should have that. But that's not what I want to create. And it just reminded me again of having to fit into a box. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have, like I said, those resources to be able to push yourself to the next level, and sometimes that does take another entity, another person, another company, another brand, in whatever way, if you don't have those resources to help you get to the next level, it's so easy for you to be forced to stay in that box. Mm-hmm. So I'm thankful for the relationships that I was able to build to help guide me in the process of creating a brand and creating a business. And I know that he is as well, and that you'll get to talk to one of the people that really helped his business move to the next level.
Very nice. I'm sort of picking up a little bit too on this notion of what it means to support someone when they need it the most. And of course, we're bringing Sergio back home to his Midlands hometown. And there's a huge community here of people that supported him in those early days and that could still continue to support him and follow him and wish him just nothing but the best in all that he is achieving.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to why you think it's important for us to have him back home for a little while? I think probably in a couple of years, it's going to be hard to get him home. He's going to be a little bit too famous for us.
No.
But what does it mean now that we can have him here?
Honestly, I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Giving people the opportunity to see success from someone that looks like them or that comes from a place where they come from, I think gives people the motivation to know that it's okay for them to believe in themselves too, and that they can also achieve what that success is for them. And I also think it's really exciting, like you said, that as his career continues to reach heights that anyone in the fashion industry could only dream of, that he still feels connected enough to call this place home, that we deserve to honor him so that he knows how much he means to our community and how grateful we are for his success. Because like you said, a lot of people here were instrumental in making sure that he was a paid designer when living in Columbia, South Carolina. He was being paid to create custom gowns, custom wedding dresses, custom debutante dresses, custom workwear and sportswear. Like he was working here. And I think it was because of that confidence that this community gave to him. He knew that stores like Bergdorf or Neiman's and Saks would also want to pay him for designs. Mm-hmm. And he was right.
All right, well, welcome back, everyone. I'm so excited today to be joined by two more guests of the Sergio Hudson Collections team, Charles Lynch and Inga Beckham. And I could tell you who they are very easily, but I really want them to tell you, our listeners, who they are. And Charles, why don't we start with you?
Oh, my. Hello, everyone. I'm Charles Lynch, co-creative director of Sergio Hudson Collection. You know, Sergio and I met many moons ago in college, and we made a pact together that we would help each other out on each other's brands. And when the time came around, I stepped in and stepped up, and it's a journey. Mm-hmm. And we do a lot together. So it's just, my title is officially co-creative director, and that entails me designing collections with Sergio and, you know, coming up with the creative direction, the themes, and researching and all of these things. But you know, with us being such a small brand, there are many other things that come along with that. But mm-hmm. officially, that's what I do as co-creative director.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And for our listeners, please meet Inga Beckham.
Hi, as Jackie said, I'm Inga Beckham. I am officially titled the CFO of Sergio Hudson Collections. I'm also the co-owner of Sergio Hudson Collections. And so my role is to make sure that the finances are in order for the business and really to basically do budgets, payroll. There are a lot of things that fall under my hat because we are a small team. So I'm a person of many hats.
Thank you, Inga.
Of course.
You know, it's great to have both you, Inga, Charles, and Sergio on this podcast. Because as we were working on the development of this exhibition focused on the fit, we really felt as though it was the three of you made up the core group that really drives what this company does and the brand. I also thought maybe it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about how you all sort of met. And Charles, you touched on that a little bit, getting to meet Sergio many moons ago. Could you tell our listeners how you both crossed paths?
Sure. I always think it's a funny story because we're such good friends now. And when I think back to that time, like, we weren't at all. Because I just remember my first memory of Sergio was being in a class with him, and, you know, he's just sharing all his fashion knowledge, and he's interjecting here and there. And I remember just sitting back thinking, this guy is a know-it-all. And like, can any one person know this much about fashion? Like, we're all here to learn. Like, what? Like, come on now. So this guy, he's one of those people. And then I remember him sharing with me that, you know, he kind of just ignored me because he felt like when I came in with a certain group of students, he was like, oh, they're not serious, you know. So we just didn't pay each other much attention for the longest, pretty much the entire time that we were in school until right before graduation. We both had a mutual friend that we both would hang out with separately, and we just spent so much time with that friend that we ended up like crossing paths and hanging out together. And from then, we've been just kind of inseparable in that way.
And this was at Bowder College when you were both studying fashion design.
Yes.
And that was based in Atlanta at the time.
Yes.
You know, those moments in life can be so wonderful because you're so young and you're moving in so many different circles. And, you know, oftentimes you meet friends that you'll have for the rest of your life. And Inga, I thought you could share with our listeners, how did you meet Sergio?
So my very, very close friend who, to be honest, I don't know if this is cultural or what, but we refer to her as my cousin, and that is just it. If I say anything else, she will come for me. But basically, yeah. So her name is Lisa Wu, and she's been my childhood friend, I think, since the 6th grade. So she's my cousin. Okay, Jackie. Sergio was making garments for her. She's one of the original housewives of Atlanta, which is a reality show. And Sergio, I don't really remember how they met, but I met Sergio because she was in town in Los Angeles preparing for another reality series that she was a part of. And we had gone shopping for her that day. And apparently Sergio was the one styling her for it. And so he was telling her what she needed to wear. And we were at a store, and I remember he was on the phone. And then I said, who is that? And she said, oh, this is Sergio, blah, blah, blah. He does this, that, and the third. And then he asked to be who I was. And then she told him, and he asked for me to get on the phone. And so I got on the phone. I said, hi, how are you? Blah, blah. We had a conversation. And then I will never forget, he says, don't let her go rogue. You know she goes rogue. And I'm like, okay, all right, fine. And then we exchanged phone numbers on the first time. He gave me a call. We got together. My daughter wanted him to now make a dress for her 8th grade graduation because she wanted to be different. And she's like, I have to have him make a dress for me. And I'm like, no, you don't. He's like a designer. And she's like, yeah, please, please. So I contacted him and I said, can you please make a dress? I'll pay you. Can you please make a dress for my daughter for her 8th grade graduation? She wants to be different. And he's like, oh, sure. I said, tell me what it'll cost, blah, blah. He did. And we got fabric and, he made the dress. She was the belle of the 8th grade graduation. And we talked. We started having conversation. And, I just talked to Sergio about what was going on in his life at the time. And he and Charles were together, working on what they were working on. He kind of told me what he was doing, but he was still in South Carolina at the time. I had taken a break. I have a real estate license, and I also owned a couple of businesses in Los Angeles. And I had taken a break because I was raising my children, and they were all in schools, and I was volunteering and doing all that, but I had kind of lost myself. And so I kind of was like, gosh, I would really love to be involved in this fashion industry. I really don't know anything about it, but I do know about business. And I felt like Sergio and Charles knew so much about fashion and what they were doing. And I learned that Sergio had been on a show and he won the show, and something just resonated with me in my spirit. And I felt like if I took some money and some time and invested in them and talked about bringing them to Los Angeles, that maybe we could make a go of this thing. And that's kind of how it started.
Was the move to LA also because you saw the potential to have access to some of those more prominent public figures, and LA was kind of an epicenter for that as well?
Not necessarily, but I feel like I was in Los Angeles. My husband is in Los Angeles, he's the person who really had the money. He's the one who I went to and said, I really like Charles and Sergio. I really think they're extremely talented. And can we invest? Can we have some money?
That's wonderful.
So it's not my money. He's the person. And to be honest with you, as we were doing this, he got really sick. We fell on financial hard times. And I had to take on extra work. It's been a whole journey, but he really has never faltered us. And they can attest to that. So me going to talk to him and then him saying, yes, let's do it, and taking the money. And he had an office downtown Los Angeles because he had other businesses going. So when they moved to Los Angeles, they moved into that office, and we changed the office around to become a sort of manufacturing place for them to design. We got a sewer, we got a pattern maker, we bought machines, all that he allowed us to transform his office into.
I love it. One of the big themes that we highlighted in the show is this idea of believing in oneself. And what you illustrate is this idea that not only believing in yourself, but how others come along and believe in you as well. And that can lift in very practical, but also really meaningful ways. I mean, people putting their money where their mouth is says a lot. And as beautiful as all this is, there is a very practical side to it. But I love how you illustrate that it all can come together very nicely and play together really well when it's meant to.
Yes.
And Charles, you were in South Carolina. You both had graduated Bowder College, and he came back to Columbia, I know, and you joined him. I thought maybe you could talk a little bit about what that time was like for both of you, because South Carolinians are just so proud of their hometown heroes. And getting to hear a little bit more of that, I know our listeners would enjoy. What was it like for you guys in those early, I call them cowboy days?
Wow, those early days were very, very interesting. I think at that time, you have this big dream and you try to figure out how to get there. And we were just going with the flow, just doing what we thought was best at the time. And the time I came to South Carolina, I moved from Atlanta. I was having some issues there with my apartment, and it was just like, okay, I got to let it go. And, my business was doing pretty well at that time. I had my own business, Charles Chic, a knitwear dress business, and it was doing very, very well. But I was doing everything on my own, like making the patterns, cutting out the dresses, putting them all together, shipping them, all this stuff, running the website, all of these things. And I'm like, it's getting to the point where I need to get a manufacturer and have somebody else take on some of these other responsibilities. And I was having this conversation with Sergio, and that coincided with my living situation and all these other things that were going on. I was like, okay, I need some downtime. Like, I got to figure this out. And he's like, just come on to South Carolina. Stay with me for a couple weeks and, cool things off and figure it out. And I said, great, I'm going to do that. So came on down. Everything was working great. And still trying to figure out the pieces of how to make all of this work. And I was like, you know what? I think this 2 weeks should probably be 2 months. Can I stay a little bit longer? And he's like, sure, no problem. Well, that 2 months turned into 3 years.
Wow.
And throughout that time, I was going through the steps of working on my business and getting things to go to that next place. And the bottom fell out. Instagram as a social media platform grew to be quite large during that period of time. And I had just started posting things about my business on there, and my product started getting knocked off.
Oh, wow.
So I'm walking down the street and I'm like, oh, that looks like my dress. And I'm going online. I'm like, that looks like my dress. And so many people are sending me emails, and I'm getting phone calls like, this is you, right? And I'm like, no, that's not me. That's not,
wow.
I didn't make that. So almost overnight, my business plummeted. And I was like, okay, now what in the world do I do? And Sergio's like, well, you're here. Like, he's like, I need help. So, and I was like, oh yeah, we did say whatever. So I helped him. We were doing custom pieces for people. And during that process, that's when he decided to sign up for the Style to Rock competition. So he went away to film that. While he was filming that, I did a little bit of work, finishing up some work that we had started before he left. We had a couple big custom jobs to do. We had like a wedding gown was one of them for a friend of ours. And that grew into, we did a capsule collection together for like a holiday collection. And that was the very first collection that we both collaborated on together.
Oh, okay.
So that was fun. And then maybe about a year later, we did an official first Sergio Hudson collection that he and I both worked on completely together. And just going from there.
When you and I were working together on the planning of the exhibition, you shared a really beautiful thought. Obviously, the brand, the company, has gone on to design for several celebrities, public figures, musicians like Beyonce, political figures like Michelle Obama, very well known. And that all comes with its own set of circumstances and everything. But you talked a little bit about some of the challenges that can come with that, but that you have learned there is this beautiful magic of serendipity in what you do, and that when one door closes, another one opens. and you're starting to trust that in the process.
In the beginning, it wasn't that natural. You get this proposition of doing this major job, a celebrity that we all recognize, and you're like, oh, great, this is the moment. Like, if I make a piece for this person at this time, the world will see it, and it's going to change the direction of the business and the brand. And those opportunities come, and you go through the process, and sometimes the ball drops right in the beginning. It's like you submit the sketch, they don't like it, they move on to something else. Then you get to the next opportunity, and it's like, okay, we like the sketch. You start having the conversations about creating the piece, and you make the piece, they don't wear it. And then you get it all the way to that next moment, and finally they wear the piece. You think this is the thing that's going to make the business boom, and it doesn't happen. What I realized in that was, like, the big thing that we thought was going to happen for us that didn't happen, the next thing that came along that we weren't even really thinking that deeply about might have been that thing. And it's happened so frequently that I started to notice a pattern in it, and I'm like, okay, you go through that moment where you fuss and you cuss, and you might even cry about it because you're in it. You're in the moment. You put in the labor, the hours, the tears, the money, all of these things you put into this thing, this one moment. The textbook tell you this is supposed to be the moment. So when that doesn't come, it's like, okay, something's better coming. And it's always been that way. And that has been my driving force every single day that I get up. Yes.
I thought we could touch on one person that's in the exhibition that's not with us at the interview today, but Justin Gloston. He is a fashion illustrator that works with the business, with the company. And I thought you guys could maybe tell us a little bit more about who Justin Gloston is.
Coach Justin. Justin is our college friend. He was also in the design program with Sergio and I. He came on a little bit later, towards the tail end. We were just about to graduate when Justin started. I always laugh when I think about it, like back on those days. And I was thinking about how Justin was a terrible sewer. He was the absolute worst sewer on the face of the earth. And I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't understand how this person who could illustrate and paint and create all these beautiful works of art couldn't create fashion. Like, you can't create clothes. I'm like, he excelled so well in so many other things. So I always remember thinking back to those days. And when we moved to Los Angeles, and I found out Justin was located in Los Angeles as well, it came to the point where we started getting more and more requests to do more and more celebrity work when we were signed to the PR showroom. And we were like, okay, we sketch well. I draw very well. Sergio draws very well. But it's like, we didn't have the bandwidth and to do all of that as well. And we didn't even really like the way our work looked for something like that. Fashion illustration is very specific.
Yes.
And what we do is something a little different than what that entails. So we were like, wait a minute, there's Justin. So we called him up like, hey, can you do this? Like, I was like, we got a sketch for, Britney Spears. Can you, do something real quick for us? And he was like, sure, no problem. And he did the one thing, and the one thing led to something else. And he just always like, if you need me, I'm available.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
He's always come through for us, and he's created some of the most beautiful pieces. Like, I'm obsessed with him.
Yeah. Someone asked me the other day, why do fashion illustrators make the legs so long? Do you want to speak to that at all?
Well, yeah, that's kind of that's how you know it's fashion.
Right.
Fashion is about having the longer limbs, a longer neck, long legs. Everything is supposed to be tall. The clothes look better on tall people. So that's even the models themselves. They're all, 5'10" and above. So, that's just the styling. And that's how we learned how to illustrate in college. And even for me, there's a book that they gave us. It's called 9 Heads. So the figure is supposed to be 9 heads tall.
Yes. I learned the same exact technique as a figure drawer. I learned the same thing. Besides Justin Gloston, who else is part of the team?
So the team itself that works directly for Sergio Hudson Collections, meaning they're on my payroll directly, is we have a production assistant, Devin. We have a showroom manager, Chelsea. We have Luciana Hudson, who is our assistant and also works doing a little bit of the running around town. I don't know I don't know how to better put it. She's on my muscle there. She does anything and everything in the showroom in Los Angeles. And then there in New York is where we do our manufacturing, and we work directly with a team, which happens to be a husband and a wife, that are pattern maker and production manager. And so we have several independent contractors that work directly for us, and they oversee all of the production in New York. We have a sales showroom, and my president of sales, Jody, she heads up our sales in New York, and that is where we do market. And then she has a whole team that works there in sales.
Wonderful.
And then, let me not forget, we have our PR team, which is called the Hinton Group, Nate and Omari, and they do all the PR. They're very well connected to all the fashion magazines and all of the publications, and make sure that we get the proper press release and the proper PR.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's important that, in the exhibition, you see a craft, creativity, and process section, and that's another theme. And you do see the name Sergio Hudson, but what we want to illustrate for people is that it's not just one person that does all of this work. It takes a team, and it's a process. And I think that's important. I'm curious, and I know other people out there listening are as well, but what does a typical day look like for you guys?
People ask that a lot, and it's really hard to answer sometimes, because it's like, well, what do you do? Especially in my role, it's shifted in the past couple of years.
Put on one hat right now, Charles. Yeah. Put on your creative director hat and say what happens when you're that day.
So when I have my creative directing hat on, that is really just me sitting back and analyzing, whatever conversations Sergio and I have for the upcoming season. Like, what does that look like? And immediately going into research. Okay, what colors are we talking about? And where can we get these colors? Like, what fabric source can we go to get this? If they don't have it readily available, can we have it dyed? And you put that in a box. And then it's like, okay, well, what are the reference points? Because we always have some kind of reference point that we start from. And sometimes you never see it at the end of the collection because it changes so much throughout the process. But, pulling images, pulling videos, and all of these things, and compiling mood boards, and then immediately going to sketching. Like, okay, what am I feeling for? Are we focusing more on suiting this season? Do we want to do evening? So sketching endlessly. But then, that goes into production, because then it's like, okay, well, the collection is designed, samples are made. Well, I'm skipping that part because you got to make the samples. So you have to oversee that and make sure that, when you're talking to your pattern maker and the sample maker, that the lines are just right, translating a sketch at this point. Okay, yeah, I put a line here. What is that line? The line means one thing to me, but it means something else to the pattern maker and the sewer. So we have to be in communication to make sure that this is what it's supposed to be in the finished product. Then Sergio and I trade off with flying back and forth from LA to New York to make sure that these things are in order. We have deliverables. So, you're sitting in there in the factory like, hey, we need this done on this day. We got to work to get this done. So while I'm in New York, that might mean I have to run to the store and pick up 5 more zippers. We need X amount of extra yards for something. We might need another pattern or alteration, take the waist in, all of these things. So jumping in to the production side, the stuff that nobody really thinks about.
Our typical days are not typical, or what someone would think that they are. One day I wake up in the morning and I have to go directly to the bank account and see how the day will go. And a lot is based on that. You know what I mean? Like what's coming in, what's going out, what we can do, what we can't do. Some days I always jokingly, everybody always laughs because I always go, oh, I'm the co-owner, co-founder, but I'm the janitor too. You know what I mean? I'm sometimes shipping boxes. And so I guess your day is just not a typical day.
Yeah.
In running a business, that's just what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you start the business and still have to continue running it,
100%.
You don't shed those roles very easily.
No, it's very hard.
Thank you for giving us a little peek behind that curtain. My final question is, the title of the show for us is really key for several reasons. The exhibition's called Focused on the Fit, and it's a double entendre. It's meant to be both literal and figural. And I really thought it would be important for our listeners to hear from both of you. This company is co-women owned and led. It's a team comprised largely of people of color. And in the fashion industry, which has gotten a lot of criticism for not being better at being more inclusive, could you speak to what this title of this exhibition is, how it sort of resonates with you?
I guess if you lay all of those things out that you just mentioned, to say focus on the fit is really for Sergio Hudson Collection, the brand, and Sergio speaks to this all the time. It's really about focusing on literally the collection. It's not even so much about himself, Sergio Hudson, the man. It's about Sergio Hudson, the collection. And focusing on the brand and having this legacy brand. So this name becomes a household name. And so that it becomes normal. And, you know, he's not just a Black designer. And it'll be easier for the next person of color to come along and just flow into the system. You don't have to be this special little thing set aside, and there doesn't have to be a special room for you and a special space created for you. You can just exist amongst everyone else. And that is what the focus is all about.
I agree with Charles. And I just want to add to it that in becoming normal, for me, what I have seen, not coming from fashion, is that there is a group, right? There is a there is a way, if you listen to what fashion tells you. But what our brand has done is that we believe that the talent speaks for itself, the hard work. I know that may sound corny or, cliche, but we work diligently every single day to make this brand work. And we're not allowing what is considered normal to be our normal. And then we want our normal to become the normal. Sergio, as Charles said, always wants to be considered the next American fashion designer. He's undoubtedly Black. I'm undoubtedly brown and Black. Charles is, we are undoubtedly, but we're human beings. And if the clothes are not good, then they're not good. Not because we're Black, not because we're white. They're not good. If they're good, let it be because he's talented. I've called him, a genius. He's a student of fashion. He really wants the clothes to speak for themselves. The sad part is we've had market after market after market, and there has not been one Black or brown buyer to come in to buy. I have sat on Zooms and no president or vice president that I've spoken to is of color. That is scary, but I'm not scared of it. I just hope, and again, we're not trying to do it for Sergio Hudson, the brand. We are trying to do it so that the people that come after us, it will be normalized. It should be. We just feel that it should be. And this is just what we want our legacy to be.
Inga Beckham and Charles Lynch are respectively the co-owner and co-creative director of the fashion brand Sergio Hudson, both having worked directly with the designer for nearly a decade. Coming up on the program,
you're taught to be elite like that, like we are the tastemakers, and you tell them what to like.
Sergio Hudson after this. Welcome back. In this next segment, our community curator, Megan Pinckney Rutherford, returns to have an intimate one-on-one conversation with her friend and famed American fashion designer, Sergio Hudson. Established in 2016, Sergio Hudson Collections is a women's ready-to-wear brand, crafted and designed entirely in the United States. Hudson's philosophy is that fashion should be for everyone and include everyone. He designs to empower the wearer and often includes a nod to the 90s of his youth. So without further ado, we hope you enjoy this intimate discussion between two longtime companions, Megan and Sergio.
So you grew up shopping for church with your mom at Taps on Main Street, and even had one of your first design studios just a few blocks north of where we are right now. How does it feel to be back where it all began, but as the focus of an art exhibit at your hometown museum?
I think it's a full circle moment for sure. Growing up here with the mother that I grew up with, I don't want to just dilute it to, church and her dressing up for church. It was an everyday lifestyle for my mother. It was how she identified herself. It was how she expressed herself. And I saw that very early on, how clothing could be an armor, how style could be a language. And she taught me that lesson.
That's beautiful. Style as a language. One of the things I really admire about you is your attention to the detail and how you have truly mastered your craft. We know that comes from your upbringing, but I guess I just want you to explain a little more of your process in terms of how do you get from, an idea to that garment?
It's very haphazard. I would love to say that it's like some, one way that I do it, but sometimes I just get a vision of what it should be, like from head to toe, and go from there. Or sometimes it's very foggy. I always say that to my design team. I'm like, I know what we need for this season, but I just can't see it. Like, I kind of see it, but I don't see it. So I ask them, sketch for me. Show me what you guys are seeing from what I'm describing. And a lot of times that'll unlock it. But it's really down to the ninth hour. Like, whatever is foggy becomes very clear. And it's like, it's go time. So I don't stress about it because I know it's going to come at last minute. So I focus on what are the colors I'm going to use? What are the fabrics I'm going to use? What silhouettes am I going to use this season? And then once I do that, it kind of I let the work speak, because you see one dress and then the dress spawns another dress and it spawns a suit. And then that suit spawns another, so it's kind of like that. It's like each piece speaks to another.
And I would imagine that since garnering the success that you have, designing has become not only different, but a little more challenging. I would assume that when you were designing for yourself here in Columbia, for instance, you got to do, things that inspired you, that made you happy, that really spoke to you, in your personal style. And now you're focused on the consumer. Tell me about those challenges.
I think being here and working with custom clients was a great lesson for what women like and what they don't like about their bodies, and what I could do to teach them how their bodies could work. You get what I'm saying? So I think that was more of an advantage for me now that I'm in the retail space, and, it's what the clients want, but you kind of have to teach them what they want. You have to lead them and guide them, because when you're in design school, they tell you, we make the trends. Right. We tell them what to like. These are secrets that they don't tell you, like in the real world if you don't go to design school, but they're like, we tell the people what they need to like next. Yeah. We are not led by the people. So nowadays, I feel like the street has been influencing a lot of designers and what they are doing. But that's always been true as well. You think about the bustles of the 1800s. Those were influenced by African women with big butts. And those, white elite women wanted to have that. So they started designing dresses like that. You think about, those huge Edwardian dresses. They wanted to wear those because it made the waist look smaller. It's a cycle, but at the end of the day, I do what I want to do. And I do what I want to do, and I appease what the people want. So if they want a suit, I'm going to give you a couple suits. But if I'm peeling dresses, I'm going to give you one suit and 3 dresses.
Yes. Well, I think you prove that you do what you want, because I watched as you used a mural in LA to inspire an entire collection. And that was you allowing, the streets to influence style, but then you really shaping it and making it something completely different. Can you tell us a little bit about that process, how that inspired you in that collection?
Well, I think that collection was special to my heart because the artist's name is Jason Naylor. And I had this little rundown studio in East LA, adjacent to downtown. And he one day came out there and painted this huge big mural that just said believe. And it was like in all these multi, technicolor, neon colors. And it was just so beautiful. And I said to myself that day as I was leaving, it made me emotional. And I said, I'm going to design a collection inspired by this mural one day. And I thought it would be like 20 years down the road. Mm-hmm. And then when I was going through my phone that season, and I was like, I think it's time to do this.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. One of my favorite pieces in the exhibit is a mini dress from that collection. Mm-hmm. The embroidery, the colors. I mean, she is a superstar. And I think that when the audience comes in to see that, they're truly going to be amazed and understand why fashion is an art form. But the idea of believing is a theme that is interwoven throughout the entire exhibit. And that's because one of the things that I truly love about you is your tenacity. And I asked you, whenever I saw you in LA, I was like, did you think that you would get here? Like, is this where you thought you would be in your career? And you said, yes, I always did. Tell me a little bit about young Sergio dreaming, wanting, believing in himself.
I don't know if it was just innate in me or if it was who my mom was and my father encouraging me, but I just always knew that's what I would do. I never had another option, never had a backup option. So it was like you either do this or you do nothing. So it was like eventually I'm going to get there or I'm going to die trying. And I think it was inevitable because I just made it that way. I don't know. I can't, it's nothing good about me or that I'm that talented or whatever.
That's not true.
It was just, I know I'm talented and or whatever, but I just think I believed, and I just really believe if you believe something, and you're truly talented at it, because, you can believe you're a great singer and you're going to be next Mariah Carey and you can't sing. You know what I mean? So I think you have to be realistic. I knew I was talented because you're talented when people respond to what you do. I knew I was talented at 5 years old when I was picking out clothes for my mom because we would go to church and we would go to the mall and people would, say, oh my God, your outfit is so gorgeous. Like, I would have never put that together. These are things that I remember hearing as a child and it re-certified in my head. Like, okay, you know what you're doing. And that was something that anytime I picked out clothes for somebody, anytime I told them what to wear, what not to do, how to do their hair, how to do their makeup, they always got a lot of compliments. So that was my reassurance that I'm talented. It's just like when you're a singer and people get up and clap when you sing or they cry when you sing, okay, I have something here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I knew I was talented and I just put the talent with the work and I believed that it was not an option for me to fail.
And look, you didn't. That makes me want to know, that feeling that you would get as a child when you would style your mother, they would go out, people would say things to her, compliment her, and I'm sure not even realizing that the compliment, should be passed on to you as well. They're really just talking to her. That feeling that you got, is that similar to the feeling that you get now when you're dressing women?
The same feeling. Like, take for instance, I creative direct for Keke now. Mm-hmm. And when I say I creative direct...
Well, let's explain what that is, because it sounds to me like that's what you were doing with your mom. Like you were your mom's creative director.
I've always been a creative director. When I say I creative direct, she has a stylist, she has a hairstylist, she has makeup artists. She needed someone to kind of corral everyone. She didn't know she needed it, but I just told her she needed it. Because it's what I did for Met Gala. I was like, I corralled everyone. And I'm like, this is the look. This is what we're doing. This is what I need you to do. This is what I need you to do. Give them references and say, this is our vibe. We're going for this. And you have to be proficient enough in hair, in makeup, in styling to be able to direct them. No, I don't want you to use a curling iron. I want you to use a blow dryer and a round brush. No, I don't want that type of smoky eye. I want this type of smoky eye. you have to be proficient enough to be able to do that. So I think been creative directing with her since Met Gala, and the same feeling I get when like she just goes post a video, a picture of herself after I've completely like told her what to wear and how to do her hair and how her makeup should be and how long her lash should be. You know, little things like that. And you see the comments, they like, oh my God, I love those lashes. Oh my God, that hair, I can't believe she wore a blowout. And when people get the references, like when they get the Robin Givens reference or when they get the early 2000s reference that we went for, it makes me smile on the inside and feel like I felt as a child for sure. And I don't need credit for it. You know, like I don't have to run around saying I'm creative director for Keke Palmer. Like, I mean, I'm Sergio Hudson. So
that's right.
I just kind of feel like it's fun for me.
Yes.
Like, and she's my friend and she's such a beautiful person inside and out. And I'm the type of friend that whatever I can do for you in my ability, I'm going to do.
And as your friend, I know that that is so true.
Yeah, I did it to you for your wedding.
You really did, and you've done it multiple times. So I know that's you as a person. But going backwards a little bit, because that Met Gala gown that you designed for her is here in the exhibit.
Yes.
And it is a masterpiece. And while the relationship that you two have is on the forefront of everyone's minds now, I think it's a beautiful synergy and we all love it. But at that time, when you were designing that Met Gala, you didn't know her.
No.
So how did you come up with the idea for that? And like, what made you feel like that was the best silhouette for that event?
Well, with Met Gala, that's a very interesting situation because you get a theme. And this year it was Karl Lagerfeld. And I was like, well, what are my favorite eras of Karl Lagerfeld? And there was, he was at Patou for a while. I think people just didn't really know, like, the whole diaspora of his career. And I wanted to reference different parts of that. So the silhouette came from the 50s. And the tweed came from Chanel. And the color palette came from his years at Chloe. And I think we melted all of that together with this idea of, when I looked at Keke, I saw, this was before I even knew her, I saw old school performer like a Sammy Davis Jr. or a Dorothy Dandridge or Diane Carroll that can sing, act, dance, perform all at the same time. And that's very rare nowadays. So I was like, I want to harken back to that. And then when I looked at her, I was like, I see like a Robin Givens, Kenya Moore type of early 90s beauty in her. And I wanted to bring that out. So with the hair and the makeup, that's what we did. And with the dress, it was just, it's like go big or go home. It's Met Gala. Let's cover this dress in Swarovski crystals. Let's cover it in I wanted the tweed to look like it was made from crystals and pearls.
And I think that was what got lost on camera for all of us to see. And that's why I'm so happy it's here in the museum, because when you see the detail on that dress and the way it glimmers, any movement that you make around it, it's
that was the sad part about the camera. We were like, oh my God, like all of this work, and it's still gorgeous on camera.
She still made every top.
Yeah, but it was like you lost a lot of the detail. And it was crazy because we took pictures, we used the flash, without a flash, we were like, okay, you'll see it. And it was like, oh well. But now you guys can see all the work we put in.
Yes, absolutely. Switching gears, so you are the namesake of your brand. But thanks to moments with Mrs. Obama, Beyonce, Queen Latifah, J-Lo, Megan Rapinoe, the list goes on and on and on. It has solidified your brand in fashion history. But your brand is only one part of you. So can you tell me how you juggle establishing your public brand versus defining your personal identity?
I mean, for so long it was one and the same. I think, and this could go deep, I think for so long I was designer Sergio Hudson. And I got to a point in my life where I kind of realized, like, okay, I've been chasing this my entire life. and I forgot to live. You know what I mean? Because I've just been laser focused, like from 5 years old. I was like, I want to be a designer. I saw Betsy's wedding. I'm going to FIT. You know, I'm doing it. Like, and I was just going straight ahead. And, you know, I woke up one day and I was like, wow, like, I need some separation here. You know, when you find love and it gives you more of a purpose. And I think with my husband, I really began to set up these boundaries. Like, okay, I'm still Sergio Hudson. I'm still interested in these things. They still make me happy. But once the business becomes a business, I think you have to say, okay, this is business. This is home.
Yeah.
I can still love what I do. And I can still, you know, look at 90s fashion shows at home and be entertained by them. But it has nothing to do with my delivery to Saks Fifth Avenue.
Right.
And I think that's where the separation had to come in. Once the business started businessing, you know, you have to put a separation there because for so long it was just a labor of love. And once it became work and a business, you have to say, okay, I still love it, but I need something else. So I think that's what my family life offers me is me.
Yeah.
Because what you see on the runway at New York Fashion Week, that's not me. And for so long it was, and I was fooled to even think that that was me. I thought when I got in Saks Fifth Avenue, when I was in Bergdorf Goodman, that then I would be fulfilled.
Right.
But I didn't feel that until, you know, I found real love. And I don't want to be sappy or anything, but it gives me purpose to get up every day and to continue when it gets really hard. You know, it's motivation. Like you have someone that is there and that understands what you're going through, but they just really want to know where you're going on vacation.
Yeah.
It's like an escape from the harshness of fashion. I don't think I would be sane right now if I didn't have that, for sure.
Well, like you said, the harshness of fashion, that's such a great way to put it because it's a cutthroat industry. It is a cutthroat industry.
You hear that, but you don't really believe it until you feel it and you see it and you're in those rooms and, you know, you it's like a tangible thing. It's real. It's shocking to me.
Well, what are some of the things that have surprised you?
Oh, I can't say that.
Oh, come on.
You trying to trick me? No, but I mean, just, you know, some of the stories you hear about fashion, they're very true, you know? It's human nature. Anytime we as humans, I feel like, can place ourselves above other humans, we do. You ever went to like a McDonald's and they charge you for a sauce and you know they could have gave you that sauce for free, but they did it because they could.
Right.
And it made them feel good that they could do something to you.
Like the bouncer at a club.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that human nature, it makes me feel good to have power. So it's the same thing in fashion. Like, I have access for you. What are you going to do to get this access? How are you going to cater to me to get what I have? Like, it's not just about, oh, you're a talented designer and I want to help you. No, it's about what can you do for me? How can you bow down to me? How can you give me something? And, you know, it was quite shocking to me because like I said, I'm blinded. I just love fashion so much. I love everybody that had anything to do with fashion growing up. You know, I'm watching everything on TV I could about fashion. So I knew all of these people and now I see them and I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the rumors are true.
Never meet your idols, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's interesting talking about power in the industry because, and you and I have had this conversation many times, as a designer, you're the one that should have the power.
You would think. And it's like, I was just talking to some friends. I was in Africa and, you know, it was a group of us, all powerful Black people in fashion, like me and Sir John, Gerara, who does hair, and Julie from Cosmopolitan. You know, and I expressed to them, I said, the issue that I have with us, meaning Black people in fashion, is we get in and we close the door behind us. And what you guys, not saying them particularly, I'm saying other people in fashion that aren't designers should understand that the only way that we're going to have real tangible power in this industry is if we build up these Black brands to legacy status.
Yes.
That's who has the power. The legacy brands have all the power in fashion, and there are no Black ones. So obviously we are all still struggling for positioning in fashion because there is no Black wealth in fashion. It's just like the rest of the world. Right. And I'm like, why don't you guys understand that? Like, if you're Sir John, a great makeup artist, he does it. But I'm just saying, you're a great makeup artist that's very well known in fashion, and you see a young Black designer gaining traction, you should jump on the ship and be like, look, I want to be a part of this. I want to add some validity to your fashion show, to your ad campaign. And until you get to the place where you can afford my rate, I'm going to do it for free.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Do you feel like anyone helped you in that way when you were coming into the industry?
No.
No.
I'm just being honest.
No. Yes, please.
You know, I would say, well, that's not completely true. My PR, Nate Hinton at the Hinton Group, he took me on. I had no money. We had no way to pay him. I think John, who still works with him, we took a call with them, and John was pretty much like, they have no money. We can't work with them. And I don't know, it was something in Nate he believed, and he said, well, we can't, take you on as a client right now. But when you're ready to do a fashion show, I'll help you. And when I was ready, I called him, and he did my first fashion show.
Wow.
And we've been working together ever since. So those moments have happened. But I've had moments like that, but they've not come from my
industry.
People.
Yeah. Yes.
Not my people in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about the Black community in general?
The Black community in general, of course.
So not in the industry, right?
Yeah, but the client support. I think, but early on, to be honest, which I love, when Michelle Obama wore my clothes, it was like every Black woman's like, okay, we got to be, we got to wear this.
Yes.
We got to go rock with our girl. So,
She set the trend.
The power that Mrs. Obama holds is matchless. And I don't think people realize just how much power that woman holds. And not intentional, because I don't think she really cares that much about fashion. She likes to be cute. But literally, my business went from one extreme to the next in one day because of her. And, it's unexplainable.
Yes. So, like you said, you haven't always felt like the industry was that open to you. But with every roadblock, you have found a door opened to make your way in this industry. And again, one of the things that I admire so much, because you are there, and even if the door wasn't open for you, you've made sure that you opened it for yourself. So one similarity that I think is across all industries is that no matter how much you accomplish or what you check off of your bucket list, you always find yourself feeling like you need to do more or do better. So I'm asking you, what is one of those goals that you're still trying to check off of your list, or what is on your 2024 vision board?
I don't think it's a particular thing. There are benchmarks I want to hit. Me and Inga are trying to grow our direct-to-consumer business. We have a flourishing wholesale business, but we want to be able to get directly to our customers a little bit better. Where are those entry point things like the belt?
Which have become iconic.
Yeah. I want to get those out there more, because I feel like I walk around and I see a lot of people wearing Gucci belts, and I'm like, great, nothing against it. But we should be that. Yeah. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
How do I get to that? And that's where, that's my mission for this year.
It's a really good one. And it's one of the reasons why we wanted to hold this exhibit, because we truly feel like, as a brand, your Sergio Hudson is the next great American design group. The same way that, I could sit here and list other American designers. I don't need to do that. But we really believe that...
No, we don't need to list that.
But we really believe that of this generation, you have emerged as somebody on the forefront of every conversation. And it's just incredible to see, despite all of the challenges that you can take.
And I mean, I'd say these challenges not to be woe it is me, but to let the world know that this is real and that it's not easy. And you should support people that you believe are good. At the end of the day, if you like a brand, support them. Buy their clothes at regular price. And I say that because, like, when you go to Saks and you wait for something to go on sale, that doesn't help that designer at all.
Right. It's actually telling Saks.
Yeah, it hurts them because they're like, oh, their clothes don't sell till it goes on sale. If you believe in the brand and you wanted to stay around, get your duckies in a row and buy a couple of pieces at retail and then wait for the rest to go on sale. But at least buy some at retail. You know, it's because it's very important, even to the huge brands like Balenciaga, Gucci, because it tells you how much they're going to buy the next season or if they're going to keep you in the store next season. So that's the struggles that I face on a daily basis.
And like you said, those are real struggles that you have to think about as a designer that extend far past designing.
Yeah.
Like there are so many other layers to your role. I mean, I know style is your passion and it always has been. But how do you still make it fun for yourself? How do you still find joy in the industry?
It is quite difficult sometimes because a lot of times I, have to deal with the stuff that Inga deals with. And I have to deal with the stuff that my co-creative deals with. And I have to lead him because I am the creative director. So at the end of the day, the creative falls on me. I can't just leave it to my team. So I have to be creative. I have to be a businessman. And, I have to hold all of this together. I have to be the liaison between the sales, the business side, and the creative, and the retailers to make everybody, dance together in unison. So it's very difficult, as opposed to just being a creative director.
Well, and you have to be the star. I mean, honestly, because that's a job in itself. You're having to do the press. You're having to be the face. So that's just another layer.
Yeah, that's another part.
Do you enjoy that type of recognition? Do you like being at the forefront?
No, I mean, of course, I like getting credit for what the work that I've done my entire life. And I think that's something that I have to push to people. I've been working towards this since I was 5 years old. Yeah. And, there are certain people and situations that have come along in my journey to get me to the next place. But those people, I feel like the universe put in my path to help me fulfill their journey and definitely for them to fulfill mine. And I think you can't forget your vision from the beginning, and you can't allow situations to make you feel like you don't deserve the accolades that you get. And I do battle with that because, it is so many people that work with me and for me. But I had to come to a place when I was like, started getting all these honors when I was like, I don't deserve this. Like, da, 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 da. And I was like, you know what? That little boy at 6 years old that was drawing whole collections in his Michael's notepad deserves this.
He does.
I sacrificed my entire childhood and early adulthood to get where I am. So, yes, I'm going to receive all these accolades.
And you deserve it. But I think that's a great place to end for other children, especially in our area, but everywhere, who maybe don't have access to, a big city or the connections. They don't have the pedigree from specific universities, but they have a big dream. What's a piece of advice that you would give them to help, push them along and ensure that they're on their journey?
Do great work. It should always be the focus. If the work is good, it can't go ignored. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. If you have great work, then you can figure out how to make the other stuff happen. I think what happens so much nowadays, and I feel old when I say like nowadays, I think people see me and they want to be me. You know what I mean? But they don't know my story. Right. They just see me walking at the end of a fabulous fashion show. They see me on the cover of Essence with Keke Palmer. they see, whoever wearing the clothes, and they go in the store and they see the clothes and they just think, oh, that's what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about the work. I got there because I did the work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you focus on the work, you can figure the rest out.
Sergio Hudson is an American fashion designer who fell in love with fashion at 4 years old while living in Ridgway, South Carolina, and has become one of the biggest names in the industry. Hudson's high-profile clients include Michelle Obama, Serena Williams, Beyonce, Keke Palmer, and many others. You can see 8 signature garments from key moments in his revolutionary career, alongside more than 20 sketches and drawings in Sergio Hudson focused on the fit, on view through June 30th at the Columbia Museum of Art. One thing that we learned that fashion requires is a full team of collaborators. You have makeup artists and hairstylists and seamstresses and tailors, and it all revolves around making these objects and putting these objects on display. Well, that's really not that much different than what we do in the museum world, except the exhibition becomes this presentation of objects. And we work really closely with both designers and artists. But when I say we, that really means a full team of collaborators on the museum side. And that's everyone from a curator who is developing a vision. And of course, Megan brought in a really strong community voice to do that, in partnership with other voices that help shape what that story is. No one person can do it by themselves. So yeah, I'm really proud of what we did with this exhibition because it was a different collaboration and a curating model. And it was really exciting to invite new voices and diverse voices to really just bring it all together and make this wonderful story and vision happen. So my hat's off to everyone and to the team. Thank you so much. You've been listening to Binder, a production of the Columbia Museum of Art. Today's episode was hosted by me, Jackie Adams, produced and edited by Drew Barron, with special assistance from Joelle Ryan Cook. To learn more about CMA exhibitions and programs, visit our website, columbiamuseum.org.